Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session. This is actually our second session with the lovely, amazing Priscilla. We're going to be talking about a very, very hot topic right now and a very important topic. And I am so grateful to, be in the presence of Priscilla and share this wonderful knowledge that we've attracted and learned. And it's all about you and your future. So I'll be, honored to pass it on to you, Priscilla, to kind of introduce yourself and, let's get started.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jamel, for having me again. I really enjoyed our last conversation, and I'm looking forward to this one as well. My name is Priscilla, and I am a mindset coach based in Nairobi, in Kenya. I've been trained by Kim Calvert, who was the late Bob Proctor's top global consultant. So Jamil and I studied the same material and just absolutely love it and absolutely love sharing it with all the people that we can. Our mission really is to just help people wake up a thought at a time and create lives that they truly desire, that they truly love, and to fall in love with themselves as well, and just, yeah, bring the magic that they're here to bring.
I love that. Fall in love with themselves as well. I love that. Yeah, this is going to be very, very powerful session here. And my name is Jamel Matias. I'm a certified mindset success coach slash business consultant, founder of Believe in the Unseen Consultant. And I help individuals, entrepreneurs, business owners basically achieve higher milestones. And it's all about believing in the unseen, whatever that goal is for you. Believing that goal is there, and I help guide you to that. And my purpose is to reveal the hidden potential within you and guide you to your truest desires. So speaking of truest desires, wow, our last session last week, we had kind of like an introductory where we talked about our journey and shared some very powerful things that spoke to us in the moment. I think we talked about paradigms as well, and of course direction and order of the mind. But speaking of order of the mind and truest desires, right? They're very connected. We're talking about setting the right type of goals for 2026. Priscilla, what are some of the thoughts that just come to mind, you know, with setting goals in general?
Yeah, so I think the way we do things is very different, right? In our world, in terms of how people are normally conditioned to look at what did I achieve in 2025, and that use that as a basis for what then I should set as goals for 2026. Whereas we don't really do it that way. Like we like to, like dream big and think big and come from a place of what is it you really want, rather than starting from a place of what do you think is achievable, right? So I think if you remove that kind of element and just be like, if I'm sitting at the end, like I'm December 2026, what would I have loved the year to look like, right? And then seeing that in different areas of your life, because again, we're holistic beings. It's not just business, it's not just work, it's not just, home, it's all of it, because the whole picture is what gives us that feeling of feeling like fulfilled and like living our best lives, right? So I think it's so good to look at, in the different areas, what are your goals? What would you like to achieve? What would you like to be celebrating at the end of December of next year? And then really tying it back to your why, because I think we spoke about this briefly last time as well. The why is what keeps you going even in those challenging days. You go back to like, okay, but this is why I'm doing this, right? Because if it's not a strong enough why, then when those days get hard, you probably will find yourself giving up and excuses will start. But when you have a solid locked in why, like for me, my huge why is my son and the life that I want for him and what I want him to experience. And so even on those challenging days where maybe I don't really feel like showing up, and then I bring up his picture in my mind, or I see him and I'm like, okay, this is why I'm doing it, it really helps me to keep going. So I'd say number one, really lock back into what is your why, even before you get into the what, even before you get into what those goals are, just lock back into your why. And then number two, see it from the end, right? Rather than kind of like looking at it that way, like see it like you're already in December 2026. describe the year, describe what that looked like for you in the different areas. And I think something else that's really important is make it measurable, because yes, maybe it's a fitness goal, right? So, and this is the thing, we're always saying how in January, gyms are like packed, 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 packed. And then like by like end of Jan, then it's suddenly like empty again, right? So like make it measurable. So if it's fitness, is it in terms of an ideal weight or an amount of weight you want to release? Is it in terms of maybe being able to run a marathon or being able to climb your stairs without panting? Have something that you can measure so that you actually know when you've hit the goal. So I think those are two really key things, is in terms of knowing your why. And then when you're setting the goals, just make them measurable and then break them down, right? Like don't look at it as the whole year. Like for us at Dynamite, what we do is we chunk it down into 90-day goals. So have your 90-day goals, which you can then break down into your daily actions and your weekly actions, which if I'm taking these actions, then I'm moving towards my goal. So yeah, that's what I'd say. And have fun with it. I think, I know for myself, I used to think of goal setting as like like it didn't give me a good feeling. It felt very like stiff and almost scary and like, what's the point if I don't achieve it anyway? And it's something that I would want to run away from. And I think when you lighten that and you just come from a space of why do I want this and how do I love it to be, and then work backwards, I think it really shifts the energy around it all.
Yeah, I love that. Beautiful, beautiful points made, beautiful topics there. It's so interesting. And I forgot to mention at the very top there, of course, if you're ready to move something really powerful in your life for 2026 and tap into what we're sharing, make sure you reach out to us. Our call links will be either in the description or the comments, just to reach out to us, because we love to meet new people and we love to help people, with what we're sharing here. Because I remember goals. I had so many goals without having this knowledge, and I didn't really understand the power of goals. Right? I didn't really understand the reason for them, and it was from like a surface level understanding goals. I was like, okay, I would love to have that. I would love to achieve that, and I also would like that and that and that and that. And it can be overwhelming, especially when you're very ambitious but you don't have direction. So goals are designed for us to grow. And this is something, that not a lot of people understand at a high level, but they're designed for you to become a grander version of yourself on a spiritual and intellectual and physical as well in some cases. So it's meant for you to grow. The getting of the goal or achieving is actually an effect, which is great. Like, who doesn't want to achieve goals, but you're actually becoming a grander, higher version of the essence of you, actuality. So understanding that part, now, you should feel better to desire grand goals, right?
Yeah.
Some people feel really bad about wanting more money for some reason. That's a money paradigm. It's a limiting belief. Some people feel certain things you're unworthy for, whether it's traveling the world or having a very successful business or being an author or, owning your first home or a bigger home or whatever, right? So these goals, they're designed for you to first use your imagination, right? Everything's created twice, once in the unseen and then in the seen. So if you're not even imagining where you want to go, you're limiting yourself to where you are right now. And, I used to do that at some places, at some points in my life. But I have a grand imagination, and I use it every day, thank goodness. And you mentioned breaking goals down. That's so good. Measurable goals are essential, right? Because you can wish and hope for so many different things, but if it's not measurable, it's kind of difficult for the mind to see it and for the universe to see it as well. It's hard for you to attract something that you can't see, right? So making it, what is that lifestyle? And you know what? And You Were Born Rich, from Bob Proctor, he shares in there, I think I forgot what chapter it is, but it talks about the money equivalent. What is the money equivalent to the lifestyle that you want? And I forgot to mention, I've been trained by Bob Proctor as well. So I'm really grateful for that knowledge, and what is the money equivalent to the lifestyle you want to live? You know, I'm adapting different things in my life. I'm getting monthly massages. I've never done that before. Monthly massages, right? And of course, you have to pay the masseuse and the company or whatever. So now I know the money equivalent, right? So you can actually create the goals you want, the lifestyle you want, and find out, okay, that costs about that and that and that. And then add it up for the month or whatever, quarterly, and you can break it down. And that way, you know, the money that you know, basically need for that lifestyle or for that version of you. So very powerful thing that just came to mind when you said break it down.
Yeah, and I love that you've talked about, you know, even like the massages and stuff, and like looking at, okay, so me in the wish fulfilled, what kind of lifestyle is that, and what can I already start doing now? Because I think the other thing as well is like we think a goal is too big, and then it's like maybe like too out there, and then we don't even want to touch it. You know, it's just like, okay, cool, if it happens, fantastic, but you don't even want to like look into what would some of those steps be, or you want to know the entire course before you start taking action. I think the really important thing is as well, when you're breaking it down, is just like do the next step that you know, right? You might not know 2 steps ahead, but you know 1 step ahead. You know one thing that you can do that will get you even like a millimeter closer to that goal, right? So just start taking the action on what you already know how to do, and then the rest of the guidance can follow. But too many times we don't want to take the first step because we can't see the whole path. We don't need to be able to see the whole path, especially when it's like a goal that we've never achieved before. We won't be able to see the whole path, but that's the point, because as you so beautifully put it, goals are about the growth. So if the goal is not helping us grow, more than likely also we won't stick to it, because the inspiration and everything won't be there, because it's something we've done before, right? Whereas when it's something that is actually giving us that growth, which is what we're seeking, like we're always seeking for expansion and fuller expression. That's our nature, just that we're not always aware of it. So when we are in our nature and we're seeking for that expansion and fuller expression, and we're growing, that's what really helps to keep us on track.
Yes. So well shared as always. You know, I love that, because this is inspiring me to talk about 3 different types of goals, you know, and it's just a simple illustration, but it brings so much clarity. You know, there's A, B, and C. And I'll announce it now. I think I shared it before, but I'm actually talking about this in more depth this Saturday on a presentation. I've been invited to speak at this Be Awesome network. Actually, I'll put you onto that too, Priscilla, off camera. I'll share it with you. So this right here, you know, there's 3 different types of goals. A, things you already know how to do. So for instance, we switched platforms from Zoom, no shade or nothing, but we thought we'll have a grander reach here. And, you know, we already know how, we have experience with both, right? This is something we already know how to do. B type goals are goals what you think you can do. A lot of people stop there on B type goals. And B type goals are really based on like planning, right? If I do this and do that, I can see myself achieving that. And it's also based on your limiting understanding of self. It's based on a self-image level too, as well. So B type goals is what you think you can do at this point. Now, C type goals is what you really want. What do you want? Right? What do you really want? What are your desires? What have you been wanting maybe for a few years now? Maybe something you wanted for 2025 and the year's over, right? And you didn't achieve it or have it in your life. But it's not to beat yourself up. You know, this is to build you up, right? And get clarity on where you really want to go in your life. So C-type goals, what's very interesting about them, they get you excited. You get so excited because now you're opening your imagination. You know that you always wanted this thing or be this thing or achieve this thing or have this lifestyle, but you didn't take the action, right? You didn't take the action towards it. And it's the start that stops most people. It really is. And even with mentorship, you know, I see it often. So C-type goals get you really excited, but you're afraid. At the same time, you're afraid because you never done it before and you never really had that forward momentum towards that dream, that goal that you really want. So dream big, open up that
Yeah.
beautiful imagination, and let your mind run wild with what you really want in your life, because you know life is short when you think of the grand scheme of things. But yeah, definitely wanted to share the different type of goals, because that should give you some clarity on where are you on that level. Are you doing things you already know how to do? Are you doing something that you think you can do? Or are you really going after what you really, really want in your life right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's unfortunate, how like imagination was really turned down for a lot of us when we were kids, right? Because we were stop daydreaming and come back to earth and like all these things. And yet it's one of our greatest creative tools. So being able to just have fun in your imagination and play and like look at, okay, what does that actually look like for me without worrying about the how, right? Just being like, what does that picture even look like? Because as you said, it's first created in the unseen, it's first created in the mind before it can be created in reality. But if you don't have that picture, how can you create it, right? It's like if you go to a restaurant and you're like, I just want to eat, and the chef or the waiter is kind of like, okay, like we have a lot of food options. What is it you want? Okay, I want beef. Okay. Do you want a steak? Do you want it medium done? Do you want it red? Do you want it well done? Like all the options, and just getting clearer and clearer and clearer on what that picture looks like, right? So asking yourself, okay, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Who's in my life? How am I spending my time? Things like that all help to really put clarity into the picture as you spend time in your imagination to really build up that image and have fun with it. Like just go back to being that child that believed everything was possible and just have fun with it. What would you love it to be? Because we keep being reminded, like we're here, to experience life, right? Not to be just be doing. We're here to really experience life. So what does the fullest experience and the fullest expression look like for you? And then work backwards from that. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else but you. And the other thing I think that's so important to mention as well when we're talking about goals, especially the big C type ones, be intentional about who you're sharing those goals with. Because if you're sharing goals with people that don't think the same way or don't see the same way or haven't achieved some of those things, even though it's out of love, they may unintentionally bring you down, because they don't see that same vision. So be super intentional when you're thinking big, when you're dreaming big. Be really intentional about who are you sharing those goals with. Make sure that they're people either who've achieved it or who think big as well, or who are like-minded, who will be able to like lift you up and support you and keep you going, rather than tell you, no, that's not possible. Like be realistic. That's not what you want when you're thinking of C-type goals, right? So just be intentional about that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because you can't share a big vision, a big picture, to those with limited vision. You can't share it, because they can't see what you've been holding on inside, maybe for some time, right? So, and what's really powerful about goals is they give you direction. They're really like your GPS in life, right? You're driving a new destination, and you have to have an address, right? It's so funny when you look at maybe Google Maps or Waze or whatever, app you use for direction. You can't set multiple destinations and go to them all at once, right?
Yeah.
That's physically impossible. So you
Mhm.
want to get clarity on where you're going for 2026 in your life. You want to know what that destination is. You know what's special about C-type goals? When you go for a C-type goal, something you really, really want in your life that you've never done before, a lot of the little smaller goals are part of that. They're all
Mhm.
connected. And I see
Mhm.
it over and over, with my clients and people that I speak to. And, you definitely want to set that destination high, because it allows you the most growth and also the most inspiration. That's what happens with B-type goals. You're not inspired. You're just doing incremental increases, even if that, and then you'll stop. This is why New Year's resolutions don't work. I'm so glad you brought that up, because not only the end of January, the gyms are empty. Usually there's an actual date, the second Saturday, I think, of January.
Mm.
over 85%, I think, or at least over 80% of New Year resolutions have already stopped. Why is that? For one, you're not choosing the right goals. That's for one. And for another, it's your paradigm. And your paradigm is a multitude of habits fixed in your subconscious mind. So it's basically your belief system, your conditioning, your limiting belief system. So that can even stop you from choosing a C-type goal, from even
Yes.
imagining it, right? So very important to let go of that limiting self, because it wants to keep you where you are always. And it's very common to stay what we call, you're in bondage. You're bonding to a lower frequency, a lower self. And this is so important, because if you're not looking at yourself and wondering why things aren't changing, the outside will always reflect what's going on the inside. So this is why it's important to gain clarity towards where you're going. And I'll share this thing here. If you don't have a goal, you're like a ship without a rudder.
Okay.
Basically, you have no direction. So the ship
Mhm.
is being tossed around in the ocean, and it can't control itself. It doesn't know where it's going. It doesn't know what to focus on, right? So that's why goals are extremely, extremely important to have.
So true, so true. And I think as well, what you said about the GPS, another really important component is knowing where you're starting, right? Because like if someone dropped you in the middle of nowhere and said, make your way to New York, the first question you'd want to know is, where am I now? So that then you kind of can figure out like, okay, this is the direction I need to go in. And it's very similar with us, just that the way we want to do it is from a very neutral perspective. So when you start to get the understanding that, our current reality is a result of past thinking, right? So we don't need to beat ourselves up. We don't need to get emotionally connected with that. We just need to very neutrally, objectively kind of look at, okay, where am I starting? Be able to let go of, what didn't work. Because also that we can carry so much like guilt and shame and everything from one year to the next. It just like keeps building and building and building and building. It's like you were doing the best you could with what you knew, right? So be able to let that go, take the lessons from it, and then say, okay, this is where I'm at in terms of my current results, and this is where I'd love to be, so that then you can start to kind of like plot the course, but do it from a neutral, very kind, compassionate space of knowing that just because that's where you've been doesn't mean that's an indicator of your future. When you change your thinking, you can truly change your life.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You know, you said something very powerful. You have to enjoy this process, right? Don't, overthink it, and don't like beat yourself up. Like I said, this is to build you up to the highest version ever, right? That you could be, which is unlimited. We have unlimited potential, and abundance is our birthright. And all these other things, as we're growing as human beings, have our environment, our upbringing, have kind of limited our thinking about ourselves. And you shared, something so powerful. It's very important to have fun with this process, and be happy and excited that I'm changing myself, and I'm changing my life, and I'm changing my results to what I desire. I'm no longer letting, things to happen to me. I'm creating what I want. And this is why we're on camera, to remind you of your own greatness, and also to give you direction, right? Because I didn't have this direction in my life. I had multiple destinations, and I was trying to go to them all at once. I did not have a streamline from point A to point B. And what you see sees you. It's a mirror, right? If you don't know where you're going, you're walking in the dark with your eyes closed. You don't see anything, right? So there's something you said powerful, and I had to grab a book I was surrounded with knowledge, but it was something I was reading this morning. It says, ordinarily we achieve conventional growth because we think along conventional lines.
Oh, yeah.
We experience reasonable performance gains because we rely on reasonable approaches. We find ways to make modest improvements in our level of success because we go looking for nothing more. Wow. So if you're thinking the same way you've been thinking last year, you want to think in new dimensions. You want to think C-type goals. You want to think beyond your present self. And how do you do that? You start with the lovely imagination, which is a higher faculty. It all starts with the imagination. So you have to imagine really outside of where you are, outside of what's in your account or where you live, even geographically. There's no limits to your imagination. It can take you at any time, any place, anywhere. And that's why some of the best things in life are free. I always love that quote because it really is. You know, you had imagination since childhood and you have it through, you know, teenage, you know, puberty and stuff like that. And you get older and you stop using it, right? But it's still there and you can redevelop it. And that is the key to your growth.
Absolutely. And I think what you said as well about how it's all a reflection, right? External is just a reflection. I remember there's, I get these like notes from the universe from Mike Dooley. And one of them a couple of days ago was saying, when you're looking in the mirror to put on your makeup or to, you know, shave or whatever it is, and something is smudging, right? You don't like start scraping the mirror. You don't like try and like change what's on the mirror. You have to change you, right? And too many times in life, that's literally what we're doing. We're like, oh, I don't like what I'm seeing out there, so I'm going to force out there to change. And it's like, no, you don't. You can't force anything out there to change. You can't change it on the reflection. You can change it inside you. And that is just so empowering and beautiful to know, because as you said, we're creators and we get to decide what it is that we want to create. So next time you feel like you're like forcing something or someone to change, just take a second and be like, oh, okay, I'm trying to like smudge lipstick off a mirror instead of, you know, like doing it over here kind of thing. And then just realize, let me take it back inside me. Let me put myself back in that creator's seat and then come from a place of creating what I want rather than just constantly reacting. So you get to create whatever that amazing life looks like for you.
Yeah, I love that. That is so good. You know, we are creators put here to create, you know, and I always loved how Bob shared that. Always spoke to me because I love nature. You know, I love animals and looking at trees and walking outside and stuff like that. And he said, look at all the creatures out there. You know, they're very comfortable in their environment. Like, you know, just look at some birds that just kind of hover in the air and don't really need to flap their wings. Or, you know, look at it's so funny. I remember there used to be a fox that used to run. We're next to a farm. So I remember this fox. He was very quiet and he was just so stealthy and just relaxed in his environment, you know, and we have a pond out here. I used to look at the frogs crossing the street and stuff and then jump back in the pond. They're very comfortable in their environment. And then Bob said, look at us. We're totally disoriented in our environment. Like, look at us, even physically, right? We have so many different shades of complexion, you know, our fingers and hands are different, you know, different features and stuff like that. And he said, you know why? Because we can create our own environment. And that was like, whoa. Yeah. Thank you. It was epiphany for me. So this is what goals allow you to do. Yep. Create whatever it is you want. And you have the power to do that. And we tend to forget that, you know, and have fun doing this. Every day you have this ability. And this is why mentorship's important, because you're not alone. And you have people that been doing it, you know, over and over and over and still creating. And, you know, I know Priscilla and I, we're going to be creating until, you know, we transcend into the metaphysical or wherever it is after that. So with this knowledge, you can apply it rather than just listening and watching, you know. So, yeah, Priscilla, any thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I love that. It's exactly what you're saying, right? The creation never stops. And even as you keep growing into the grander and grander version of yourselves, it still never stops. There's no stop line, you know. It's whatever you want it to be, and keep being, and again keep growing, because like we said, it's for expansion and full expression. So there's something that, you know, Bob used to say as well, that if you're not growing and you're not you're not growing, you're going backwards, right? You're disintegrating. You can't just be standing still, right? And I think at times we think we think a comfort zone means we're like standing still, and it's like, no, a comfort zone actually means you're going backwards. So you always need to be growing and growing and growing. And growth doesn't have to be this like kind of scary sounding thing. Yes, it can be scary, but as you said, it's the scare and excitement, right? It's like, ooh, how can I, but ooh, that would be so cool. You know, it's like that kind of mix of like scared and excited, as opposed to like this big boring thing that I just don't want to look at. Like, don't look at it that way anymore. Look at it this thing that like, yeah, I can be a bit scared, and yes, it's going to stretch me, and stretching isn't necessarily always comfortable, but how exciting is that also, knowing I'm growing into that version of me that's achieving those things. So yeah, attitude around the goals is extremely important.
Yeah. Attitude in general is important, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, that attitude is the law of vibration, right? What is the energy you're putting out there? And, you know, if you got inspired with this live stream and what we're talking about, and you received any type of value, reach out to either one of us. You know, we definitely want to help you with this material because it's life transformational, and you gain clarity on what you're doing, you know, with your life, which is the most important thing you can think of. And, you know, what's interesting about goals, not only you achieve more, you feel better about yourself, you know, you're happier, etc., but you start impacting people around you too, you know, your family, you know, kids, loved ones, etc. You know, you're becoming a grander version of yourself. And the only thing that'll stop you from moving forward towards that goal is your limiting self. It wants to hold on to what's comfortable and what has been the same for so long. Don't let that limiting self hold you back anymore. You know, allow your imagination to flow. And of course, if you want to learn more about what we do and helping people, really tap into this knowledge. This is a quick 30 minutes of what we're sharing here, and it was very potent. And, you know, it's not just the knowledge. It's very, very important for you to act on it. And when you take action, guess what sees you? The universe. And speaking of that, you know, Priscilla said, you know, nothing's never created or destroyed. Guess what's already created, waiting on you to make a decision? Your goals, your higher self. So anyway, our call links will be probably in the description or the comments. Either way, you know how to message us on whatever platform you're on as well. Don't let this just be inspirational motivation. You know, apply it, because this way you're moving closer towards what you really want in your life. Priscilla, any last words there?
No, I think you've summed it up perfectly. Make the decision, right? Make the decision of 2026 being what you want it to be, being a creator for 2026, not reacting, not just kind of like letting life happen to you, like say enough is enough. I'm ready to create the world I want, the life I want. And as you so beautifully said, that when we do that, like we get to impact the people around us in the most beautiful ways, right? Especially as parents, I think that's such an amazing gift to be able to give your kids, is both in terms of what you teach them and in terms of how they see you live. So just make the decision that 2026 is going to be an amazing year, and chart out what does that look like for you, and have fun with the process. And yeah, please do reach out to either one of us. We're both so passionate about this work, and we absolutely love guiding people along this journey. So reach out to us. We're here to help you.
Yes, yes. And I've almost forgot to mention, this Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern, I am going more in depth on setting the right type of goals on the Be Awesome Network. So if you want access to that, just reach out to me either way. So this has been another awesome session. We got to come up with a name, maybe, Priscilla. And,
like creating a little mini series.
Right, exactly. And I'm sure we'll have some more to come, you know, but act on this knowledge. And guess what I found?
Yay! Sound effects.
Yes. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Have an abundant day.
Bye.